A 4,300-year-old mummy covered in gold has just been uncovered in Egypt, and almost immediately people began asking, could this discovery lead to Cleopatra's lost tomb? But before we connect these two mysteries, there's something you need to know. Imagine standing at the bottom of a dark shaft buried deep beneath the Egyptian desert. There's no sunlight here, no sound from the modern world. Only ancient stone, dust, and a sealed limestone coffin that has remained untouched for thousands of years. Then, after more than 4 millennia, the lid is finally opened. And inside is something almost impossible to believe: a human body covered in shimmering gold. The discovery was made at Saqqara, one of Egypt's most important ancient burial grounds, just south of Cairo. But this was not the tomb of a pharaoh. It was the burial of a man named Hekashepus, and his story takes us back to a period long before Cleopatra, to the age of the Great Pyramids. Cleopatra is one of the most famous figures in ancient Egyptian history. She was the last active ruler of Ptolemaic Egypt, and her life was closely connected with the powerful Roman leaders Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. But when Cleopatra died in 30 BC, something important was lost with her: the exact location of her tomb. Ancient accounts say that Cleopatra was buried alongside Mark Antony, but despite centuries of searching, archaeologists have never definitively identified her final resting place. And that's what makes her tomb so fascinating. Imagine discovering the final burial place of Cleopatra after more than 2,000 years. It could reveal new information about her final days, her burial, and the world she lived in. That's why every major discovery involving an ancient Egyptian tomb can create enormous excitement. And when archaeologists uncovered a mysterious mummy covered in gold, people immediately started making the connection. Could this somehow be connected to Cleopatra? The idea sounded incredible, but there was one thing nobody could ignore: the dates. And once we put this golden mummy and Cleopatra on the same timeline, the entire mystery changes. Now let's put the two stories on a timeline. The golden mummy discovered at Saqqara is approximately 4,300 years old. That means the man inside the coffin lived and died roughly around 2,300 to 2,500 BC. Now look at Cleopatra. She lived more than 2,000 years later during the 1st century BC and died in 30 BC. The difference is enormous. This golden mummy existed more than 2,000 years before Cleopatra was even born. Think about what that means. Between the life of this mysterious man and the reign of Cleopatra, thousands of years of Egyptian history passed. Different dynasties ruled the country. Kings came and went. The Great Pyramids had already become ancient monuments long before Cleopatra's time. So connecting this mummy directly to Cleopatra simply doesn't work. The two belong to completely different chapters of Egyptian history. And that's what makes the discovery even more interesting. Because if this isn't Cleopatra, then who exactly was the person buried inside this extraordinary golden coffin? To answer that, we need to meet the man whose name was hidden beneath the sands for more than 4,000 years: Hekashepus. The truth about this mummy is far more fascinating than the Cleopatra rumors. The discovery was made at Saqqara, one of Egypt's most important ancient burial grounds, located just south of Cairo and famous for the step pyramid of Djoser. Archaeologists were investigating tombs from Egypt's 5th and 6th dynasties, a period known as the Old Kingdom, the Great Age of pyramid building. Deep underground, at the bottom of a roughly 15-meter shaft, they discovered a massive limestone sarcophagus. And remarkably, it was still sealed. When the heavy stone lid was finally opened, they didn't find a pharaoh. They didn't find a queen. Instead, they found a man named Hekashepes. He was not a king, but he appears to have been an extremely wealthy member of Egypt's elite. His body had been carefully mummified and covered in layers of gold leaf. He was also wearing a beautifully decorated tunic and a golden band around his head. And this is what makes the discovery so remarkable. Because Hekashepes wasn't royalty, yet he received a burial of extraordinary luxury. His golden mummy gives us a rare glimpse into the wealth, status, and burial traditions of Egypt's Old Kingdom. But why would an ordinary-looking man receive such an extraordinary burial? The answer lies in the golden burial itself. Gold was far more than a symbol of wealth in ancient Egypt. To the Egyptians, gold was associated with the divine and with something that could endure forever. That makes the burial of Hekashepus especially fascinating. His body wasn't simply mummified and placed inside a coffin. It was covered with layers of gold leaf, creating a burial unlike anything an ordinary person could afford. And that's important because Hekashepus wasn't a pharaoh. He was an elite member of Egyptian society who apparently possessed enough wealth and status to receive an extraordinarily luxurious burial. His sealed tomb also preserved something incredibly valuable for archaeologists. It gave them a rare opportunity to study the burial practices, materials, clothing, and preservation techniques of the Old Kingdom, without the disturbance that normally comes from ancient tomb robbery. In other words, Hekashepus became more than a mysterious golden mummy. He became a time capsule from the age of the pyramids. And the more archaeologists looked around the burial complex, the more they realized that Hekashepus wasn't alone. Hekashepus wasn't alone beneath the sands of Saqqara. Around his burial shaft, archaeologists uncovered a network of other tombs, revealing more fascinating people from the same ancient world. One of them belonged to a man named Enigma. He was a priest and an inspector of officials during the reign of Unas, the last pharaoh of Egypt's 5th dynasty. His tomb contained vivid scenes showing aspects of daily life in ancient Egypt. Another tomb belonged to a high-ranking official named Mary, who held the prestigious title of Keeper of the Secrets. The excavation also revealed a large collection of beautifully carved stone and wooden statues. These figures represented servants, family members, and the deceased themselves, and were connected to ancient Egyptian beliefs about life after death. Together, these discoveries tell us something important. This wasn't simply one mysterious golden mummy. It was an entire glimpse into a society that existed thousands of years before Cleopatra. And to understand why Hekashepus could receive such an extraordinary burial, we need to travel back to the civilization that built the pyramids. To understand Hekashepus, we have to go back more than 4,000 years, to the Old Kingdom of Egypt, the era often remembered as the Age of the Pyramids. This was a time when Egypt was already a powerful and highly organized civilization. The Great Pyramids were being built, enormous monuments were rising from the desert, and Egyptian society was developing sophisticated systems of government, religion, craftsmanship, and burial. The people of this era had a very different understanding of death. They believed that death was not the end of existence. The body had to be preserved, the tomb had to be prepared, and the deceased needed everything necessary for their journey into the afterlife. That's why Egyptian burials could be so elaborate. And Hekashepus gives us a rare glimpse into that world. His golden burial shows that extraordinary funerary wealth was not necessarily limited to the pharaohs. Elite members of society could also receive elaborate preparations and expensive materials for their journey beyond death. And that is what makes this discovery so valuable. Hekashepus doesn't tell us where Cleopatra was buried. Instead, he takes us much further back, to a world that was already ancient long before Cleopatra ever appeared in history. A world of pyramids, powerful kings, and beliefs that would shape Egyptian civilization for thousands of years. So, if the golden mummy has nothing to do with Cleopatra, one question still remains. Where is Cleopatra's tomb? This is where the mystery becomes much more difficult. Cleopatra died in 30 BC, after the defeat of Mark Antony and the rise of Octavian. Ancient accounts indicate that Cleopatra and Mark Antony were buried together, but the exact location of that burial has never been definitively identified. For more than 2,000 years, historians and archaeologists have searched for clues that could reveal her final resting place. One of the sites that has attracted particular attention is Taposiris Magna, an ancient temple complex near Alexandria. Some researchers have suggested that Cleopatra's tomb could be somewhere in or around the site, but so far, no discovery has provided definitive proof that Cleopatra herself was buried there, and that means the greatest mystery remains unsolved. The golden mummy cannot lead us directly to Cleopatra, but perhaps the real story isn't about finding her tomb at all. Perhaps it's about understanding just how much of ancient Egypt is still waiting to be discovered. So if this golden mummy cannot lead us to Cleopatra, why is the discovery so important? Because Hekashepes gives archaeologists something incredibly rare, a glimpse into the private world of an elite Egyptian from the Old Kingdom. His burial shows that luxurious mummification was not reserved exclusively for pharaohs. A wealthy and powerful individual could also receive extraordinary treatment for the journey into the afterlife. The sealed burial also preserved valuable evidence about ancient Egyptian preservation techniques, clothing, materials, and artistic traditions. Instead of revealing Cleopatra's secret, Hekashepes reveals something much older. He shows us how sophisticated Egyptian burial practices had already become thousands of years before Cleopatra. And perhaps the most remarkable part is that his story survived at all. For more than 4,000 years, Hekashepes remained hidden beneath the desert. His name disappeared from history. His tomb was sealed. His body waited in darkness. And then, thousands of years later, archaeologists opened the coffin and brought his story back to life. That may be the real secret of the golden mummy. Not Cleopatra, not a lost queen, but a forgotten man who survived through one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries of ancient Egypt. So, to answer the big question, no, the 4,300-year-old golden mummy will not lead us to Cleopatra's lost tomb. The timeline simply doesn't work. Hekashepes lived thousands of years before Cleopatra. But that doesn't make the discovery any less extraordinary. If a perfectly preserved, gold-covered elite Egyptian could remain hidden beneath the desert for more than 4,000 years, then the sands of Egypt may still be protecting countless stories we haven't discovered yet. And the search for Cleopatra's tomb continues. Archaeologists are still investigating possible locations, including Taposiris Magna near Alexandria. Will they eventually find the final resting place of Egypt's most famous queen? Nobody knows. But perhaps that's what makes ancient Egypt so fascinating. Every answer seems to uncover another mystery. And somewhere beneath the sands, another sealed tomb could still be waiting. Maybe the next discovery will finally reveal the secret we've been searching for. So, the 4,300-year-old golden mummy may not reveal Cleopatra's lost tomb, but it has revealed something just as fascinating: how much of ancient Egypt is still hidden beneath the sands. Hekashepus disappeared from history for more than 4,000 years, until archaeologists opened his sealed tomb. And if one forgotten burial could survive for so long, what else is still waiting to be discovered? Perhaps somewhere beneath Egypt, Cleopatra's final resting place is still waiting. And when that tomb is finally found, history may have to be rewritten. Subscribe for more ancient mysteries and discoveries.